Sunday, July 21, the parable of the sower. Read Mark chapter 4, verses 1 to 9. What are the different soils like, and what happens to the seed that falls on them? Mark 4, beginning at verse 1. Again Jesus began to teach by the lake. The crowd that gathered around him was so large that he got into a boat and sat in it out on the lake, while all the people were along the shore at the water's edge. He taught them many things by parables, and in his teaching said, "Listen, a farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places, where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants, so that they did not bear grain. Still other seed fell on good soil. It came up, grew, and produced a crop, some multiplying 30, some 60, some 100 times." Then Jesus said, "Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear." When reading the parables of Jesus in the Gospel, people often want to jump quickly to the interpretation. After all, is that not the point of these stories? To teach some spiritual truth for Christian life? Yes, but sometimes, other than in brief comments such as, "The kingdom of God is like," or "He who has ears to hear, let him hear," Jesus does not explain the parable. Consequently, it is good to slow down and simply analyze the story itself in order to catch the direction its various narrative characteristics point toward. Doing this with the parable of the sower yields a variety of ideas. The seed is the same in each case, but falls in 4 different types of soil. The type of soil greatly influences the outcome for the seed. Instead of one continuous story, the parable is actually 4 individual stories told to completion in each setting. The length of time for completing the story lengthens with each successive story. The seed that falls on the road is eaten immediately by the birds. And it happened, as he sowed, that some seed fell by the wayside, and the birds of the air came and devoured it. Verse 4. The seed that falls on the rocky ground takes a few days or weeks to reach its failed outcome, which included being scorched by the sun. The seed that falls on the weedy soil takes longer still to reach its unproductive end, choked as it is by the thorns. The seed that falls on the good soil takes the longest of all, presumably an entire growing season, as is the normal pattern for a crop. 3 of the stories are about failure. Only the last is about success, a good, abundant crop. The length of the stories, the longer and longer period of time for each successive story, and the fact that only one story is about success, all point to the risk of failure, but the abundant outcome of success. The parable seems to point to the cost of discipleship and the risks involved, but it also highlights the abundant reward of following Jesus. And so to finish today, what are some other spiritual lessons that we can learn from nature?
This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.